Lisa Spinelli, a dedicated kindergarten teacher in New York City, spends her days nurturing young children, guiding them through letters, numbers, and basic social skills. She loves teaching, but her life feels quiet, predictable, and a little lonely. One afternoon, while tidying the classroom after lessons, she overhears 5-year-old Jimmy reciting a poem aloud. His words are not the simple rhymes typical of a child his age. They are thoughtful, layered, and surprisingly profound. Lisa is immediately captivated. She quietly listens, then later writes down every word, careful not to disturb him. A spark ignites within her. This is not just talent, it is genius. Lisa begins to feel a mix of excitement and responsibility. She wonders if she should encourage Jimmy, share his gift, or keep it private. Her curiosity grows into a quiet obsession as she considers how a child so young could express such deep thoughts. She starts to imagine his potential as a poet, and envisions a future where he could be recognized for his creativity. At the same time, Lisa feels a subtle anxiety. Sensing the fragility of childhood innocence, she questions whether revealing Jimmy's talent might disrupt the normal course of his life. This moment sets the stage for the complex relationship that will unfold between teacher and student, shaping the emotional and ethical tensions of the story. Excited and inspired by Jimmy's remarkable poem, Lisa decides to share it with her adult poetry class. She carries the neatly transcribed words in her notebook, feeling a mix of pride, nervousness, and anticipation. When it is her turn to read, she stands before the group, her voice steady but soft, and begins reciting the lines exactly as Jimmy wrote them. The words are simple, yet profound, an insight into a child's view of the world that feels unexpectedly wise. The other students listen intently, some leaning forward, eyes widening with appreciation. A few nod slowly, recognizing the emotional depth in what a 5-year-old has expressed. Lisa notices that even Simon, her poetry instructor, is intrigued, offering subtle encouragement and questions about the imagery and rhythm. For Lisa, this moment is electrifying. It confirms her belief that Jimmy's talent is extraordinary, and it sparks a new sense of purpose in her own life. She feels a mix of awe and protectiveness, as if she has discovered a fragile treasure that must be nurtured carefully. At the same time, she begins to imagine the ways she could guide and promote his gift, despite the potential consequences. Lisa, growing increasingly concerned about nurturing Jimmy's poetic talent, decides to speak with his father, Nikhil. She wants to share what she has discovered, hoping he will understand the significance of his son's gift. One afternoon, she visits the family home, carrying her notebook filled with Jimmy's poems. Nikhil greets her warmly but with polite curiosity, inviting her to sit in the living room. Lisa carefully explains how Jimmy has been creating poems spontaneously, often reflecting ideas far beyond his age. She emphasizes the depth, originality, and emotional resonance of his words, speaking with a quiet passion that betrays both pride and concern. Nikhil listens attentively, showing a mixture of admiration and caution. He praises Jimmy's creativity, acknowledging the specialness of the poems, yet he expresses a desire to let his son enjoy a normal childhood. He worries about exposing Jimmy to attention or pressure too soon, insisting that play, school, and ordinary experiences remain his priority. Lisa feels a tension rise within her. Her excitement and belief in Jimmy's talent clash with Nikhil's cautious, protective perspective. The conversation highlights the differences between Lisa's idealistic, almost obsessive devotion to nurturing genius and Nikhil's pragmatic, caring approach to parenting. This meeting sets up the ongoing conflict between nurturing exceptional talent and preserving the innocence and well-being of a child, shaping the ethical and emotional tensions that will drive Lisa's decisions in the following scenes. Lisa's fascination with Jimmy's poetry grows, and she becomes determined to share his talent with a wider audience. Despite knowing Nikhil would prefer Jimmy to have a normal, carefree childhood, she arranges to take him to a poetry reading in Manhattan. Lisa explains the plan in a casual, almost matter-of-fact way, but the underlying urgency and excitement in her voice reveal her growing obsession. At the reading, the space is intimate, filled with attentive adults who are eager to hear new voices. When it is Jimmy's turn, he recites one of his original poems with quiet confidence. His words are precise, rhythmic, and unexpectedly mature, capturing the attention of the audience. Lisa watches closely, a mixture of pride, awe, and anxiety washing over her. The listeners are visibly impressed, nodding and murmuring appreciatively, confirming what Lisa already suspects: Jimmy is extraordinary. For Lisa, this moment is transformative. It validates her belief in the importance of nurturing his talent and strengthens her sense of purpose. However, the experience also intensifies her internal conflict. She knows she is crossing boundaries, taking liberties with Jimmy's life and parental expectations. The scene underscores her growing obsession and foreshadows the ethical dilemmas and risky decisions that will define her actions in the following chapters, as she wrestles with the tension between admiration for genius and the responsibilities of care. Amid her growing obsession with Jimmy's poetry, Lisa finds herself drawn to Simon, her adult poetry instructor. Simon is charismatic, insightful, and somewhat distant, embodying the literary sophistication Lisa admires. One afternoon, after a class discussion, Simon invites Lisa to meet him privately, suggesting they discuss poetry further. The invitation awakens emotions in Lisa she had not fully acknowledged: desire, longing, and the need for personal validation beyond her role as a teacher. Their initial meeting is casual, revolving around literary analysis and creative technique, but it soon evolves into something more intimate. Lisa and Simon share a brief affair, marked by a mix of tenderness, vulnerability, and secrecy. For Lisa, this relationship provides a fleeting sense of connection and recognition, validating her artistic sensibilities and heightening her emotional intensity. However, it also complicates her life, adding personal temptation to her already consuming focus on Jimmy. She struggles to balance her roles as a wife, mother, and teacher, while simultaneously nurturing her fixation on Jimmy's talent and managing her attraction to Simon. The affair highlights Lisa's desire for fulfillment in areas beyond her immediate domestic and professional world. While the romantic element is brief, it underscores her emotional complexity and foreshadows the increasingly risky choices she will make, blurring the lines between personal desire, ethical responsibility, and the drive to protect and cultivate genius. Lisa's obsession with nurturing Jimmy's poetic talent deepens, and she begins to insert herself more actively into his daily life. She offers to watch him after school, suggesting activities that align with her vision of cultivating his creativity, rather than simply following his normal routine. At home, Lisa's preoccupation begins to strain her family relationships, as she is less present with her own children and distant from her spouse. This scene illustrates the growing imbalance in her life, where her dedication to Jimmy's talent increasingly eclipses other responsibilities. The tension between nurturing potential and respecting boundaries foreshadows the more extreme choices she will make in the coming scenes. Lisa's fascination with Jimmy's poetic talent evolves into an all-consuming obsession. She spends increasing amounts of time analyzing his words, noting patterns, and imagining the literary potential that could be unlocked if his gift were nurtured properly. This preoccupation begins to dominate her thoughts, overshadowing her responsibilities as a wife, mother, and teacher. At school, Lisa finds herself distracted, reflecting on Jimmy's latest poem instead of focusing solely on her students' needs. She begins bending boundaries, guiding Jimmy in ways that emphasize creative output over ordinary childhood experiences. At home, her family notices her emotional distance, yet Lisa dismisses these concerns, believing that her dedication to Jimmy's talent justifies the sacrifice. Her interactions with Jimmy become more personal and intimate. She probes his thoughts and feelings, steering conversations toward abstract ideas and creative expression. Lisa's sense of urgency grows as she imagines that Jimmy's talent must be recognized now, before the world's pressures or disinterest can diminish it. This fixation leads her to disregard Nikhil's cautions and societal norms about childhood innocence. Even her brief affair with Simon fades in importance compared to the pull she feels toward guiding Jimmy. The scene highlights the escalating tension between admiration for genius and ethical responsibility. Lisa's obsession is no longer casual or harmless. It is driving her toward risky, morally ambiguous actions that will culminate in life-altering decisions. Lisa's obsession reaches a breaking point when Nikhil enrolls Jimmy in a different kindergarten, aiming to ensure a normal, balanced childhood. Consumed by the fear that Jimmy's poetic potential will be ignored or stifled, Lisa makes a drastic decision. One morning she takes Jimmy without his parents' knowledge, convincing him to accompany her on what she presents as a special outing. She drives them to a motel near the border, secretly planning to cross into Canada so that Jimmy's talent can be fully nurtured and protected from everyday distractions. Jimmy, initially unsure, senses the tension and wonders if he is doing something wrong, but he is too young to fully comprehend Lisa's motives. The motel is isolated and quiet, reflecting the secrecy and gravity of Lisa's choice. She attempts to reassure Jimmy, emphasizing the uniqueness of his talent and framing their separation from his parents as an adventure. As they settle in, the weight of her actions begins to register. The thrill of protecting a gifted child is interlaced with guilt and fear of the consequences. This scene marks a pivotal turning point. Jimmy is remarkably perceptive and understands the urgency of seeking help. When Lisa steps away briefly, he seizes the moment to take action. Using the phone in the room, Jimmy dials 911, his small hands trembling but determined. He reports that he has been taken without permission, speaking carefully to ensure the operator understands the situation. Lisa returns to find him on the call, her face registering shock, panic, and immediate guilt. The tension escalates as she realizes the gravity of what she has done. The motel becomes a flurry of activity as law enforcement responds quickly to the report. Jimmy remains composed, providing the necessary information while Lisa is confronted by the consequences of her obsession. The scene emphasizes the ethical and moral boundaries that Lisa has crossed. The film closes with a focus on Jimmy, whose innocence and extraordinary talent remain intact, underscoring that genius can emerge independently of adult intervention. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth recaps and reviews. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the hidden truths in every story.